John's tone intensified as we made our way down the river that day. Okay, guys, remember that rapid I told you about where the guy died? It's coming up. Leah and I quickly caught each other's eye. He had our complete attention. Just pay attention, he said, and follow me, and we will hit it right. If not, bad things can happen. We must go in fast and straight on. If you follow my commands, we won't have any issue. I haven't had any swimmers here, so don't worry, he said. I just need to make sure you hear me and you follow me. It's a really fun and exciting rapid. If you fall in, he said, don't panic and don't fight the river. She will cough you up and send you downstream. If you are stuck under the water, make the paddle an extension of your arms. Hold the blade and put the T-grip of the paddle as high above you as possible. We'll come and get you. He demonstrated with his own paddle. Everybody good? We all nodded in solemn agreement. Well, it's been nice getting to know you, Neil mumbled to me. We loaded up and paddled back out into the gentle flow. It only took us a couple of minutes before the canyon narrowed and the water really began to churn. My pulse quickened. None of us said a word as we hung on every command from John. Up and down, our raft jolted over the waves. Forward hard, John yelled. We cascaded down a huge wave, then up the other side. The nose of our raft catapulted into the air. A wall of water then crashed over Neil and I in the front. We all dug in and pulled through. It was exhilarating. Swimmer! Swimmer! John yelled. I didn't quite comprehend what was happening. I turned around to celebrate with Leah, and she had vanished. 1 minute she was behind me paddling and cheering. The next, she was gone. I looked at John and I saw an intensity and concern on his face I hadn't seen before. What's happening? I thought. Is she okay? John quickly had us spin the boat over into an eddy. We looked across the torrent of white water. There was no sign of her. The seconds ticked by, and I watched helplessly in disbelief. There she is! Anastasia shouted and pointed. In the center of the river, you could see about 6 inches of the T-grip of her paddle rising just out of the white water. We repositioned the raft, headed back upstream. John pulled out his rescue throw bag and stood up in the raft. After about 15 seconds, her tiny body catapulted up on a rapid like a fishing bobber. She looked so small, like a rag doll being tossed on top of the waves. She immediately headed back out into the flow, and we were able to get out and grab her and pull her into the boat about 30 yards downstream. She was fine, unfazed even. I realized how quickly things can change. That rapid marked me for life. Proverbs 15 verse 2 says, "The tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouths of fools pour out folly." Clear, courageous communication is foundational in leading and guiding people in the way of worship. Why? Because communication is essential in relationships. Effective communication creates unity. When we communicate clearly, lovingly, and truthfully, we grow trust in the garden of our relationships. Trust that our words mean something. Trust that we have the very best in mind for those we love and lead. In guiding, we must communicate where we are going and why. John was an extraordinary communicator. He let us know what was coming. He taught us how to handle it. He warned us of danger and constantly pointed to the beauty of what we were experiencing. He took our raft full of very different people from all walks of life and with very different personalities and abilities, and he made us a unified group of adventurers. His clear instruction brought stability to our journey. As leaders, so often we make assumptions that those on the journey with us know what we are thinking or think like we do. That sets us up for poor communication. John cared about our safety. He cared about our unity. He cared about us. He knew if we were not together, then we wouldn't make it. His clear, direct communication about the river, our paddling techniques, and what lay ahead not only kept us unified, it kept us safe. Leah's life was spared due to his wise and diligent communication. He made sure we understood the gravity of what was happening. He took it seriously, yet helped us have fun. As worship leaders, we must learn to do the same. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15 through 16 says, "Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is, Christ. From Him the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work." The way of worship calls us to be clear, courageous communicators.
This lesson deals with communication. It's understanding how we need to be clear in our directives, our plan, and our purposes. Communication. This term signifies a process by which information is exchanged between individuals. Good communication is often cited as the quality for any company's success. An improper or bad communication is often specified as rationale for the demise of a major corporation or organization. But for the purposes of this lesson, focus and attention is devoted to learning how the worshiper can manage one of the most important facilitators of worship, communication. He is a facilitator of communication, and that begins with controlling the tongue. What follows are 5 areas of communication that spring from a person's heart: holy, humble, honest, harmful, and healthy communication. Communication. What a word. Well, let's consider each of these areas as we continue to discover the way of worship. First is holy communication. The worshiper has the responsibility to discipline himself and guard communication in every process. Let me say it again. The worshiper has a responsibility to guard the communication process, and in the process develop holy communication. Holy communication is this: it's fleeing from evil. It begins with the purposes of the worshiper's heart, and it involves guarding the tongue from evil. The psalmist writes, "I will guard my ways, lest I sin with my tongue. I will restrain my mouth with a muzzle while the wicked are before me." Wow. Holy communication. First, it begins by exalting the Lord. Perhaps the most efficient method for fleeing evil and fleeing evil communication is by practicing private and public exaltation of God. Brag on God. Proclaim the wonders of God to the nations. Present sacrifices of praise to God. Extol the Lord. Tell the world of His miracles and sing praises. Then there's holy communication that involves edifying and encouraging. Edifying involves instructing, building up, making strong, and improving morally, spiritually, and emotionally, and physically. Encouraging takes place each time the worshiper provides support, hope, confidence, inspiration, or motivates. Both are biblical terms that have far-reaching implication for the way of worship. Next is not only holy communication, but humble communication. Humble means to be modest, without an excess of pride. Humble here implies being modest in conversation, presentation, and communication. Refuse to take the opportunity to brag on yourself or your own accomplishments. The worshiper must never think more highly of themselves. Quietly serve. Be genuine in all of the instructions and encouragement. Humble communication begins with the person's heart, and it continues to the head and issues blessings with the hands. Proverbs 27:2 reads like this: "Let another man praise you, and not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips." So we have holy communication, we have humble communication, now we have honest communication. Just as humble communication begins in the heart of the worshiper, honest communication relies on the Holy Spirit to transform from the inside out. Honest communication involves your testimony. Testimony gives an open example of how the worshiper speaks in love, sings with grace, and serves with humility. You see, the testimony establishes one's reputation. Testimony is an open reflection of the heart and at the heart and center of great communication. So then what is next? Honest communication. It displays your temperament. Temperament has everything to do with a person's nature, disposition, or character, or even personality, especially as it permanently affects their behavior. Testimony has to do with what people see in a person. Temperament has to do with how they experience you and me as a person. It has everything to do with our interpersonal relationships with other people. Then there's this issue of harmful communication. It is no secret that communication that is full of pride and arrogance divides and destroys. Sometimes it's evident by the way worshipers respond to each other, giving and receiving correction with a contrary spirit, perhaps. At other times, harm comes through the avenue of criticism. But no matter the delivery, harmful communication is always destructive. Harmful communication is destructive. In one true sense, criticism, no matter how justified, will hurt and wound, and in the process make the person issuing out the criticism harsh and vindictive. But the reality is, harmful communication is defilement. In dealing with the principles surrounding harmful communication, the Bible uses the term defile or defilement. To defile means that something is being deliberately made unclean or impure. In the communication surrounding worship, defilement refers to making the interaction between two parties itself debased or corrupt. The Apostle James contends that such behavior does in fact defile the whole body. He said the tongue is so set among the members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire by hell. But no man can tame the tongue, it says. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Wow. Well, that's harmful communication. What about healthy communication? The final area of communication surrounding the worshiper is healthy communication. This area is grouped into two areas: delightful communication and wise communication. Delightful. You know, the writer of Ephesians tells us that when we talk, not to say harmful things, but to say what people need. Words that will help, and words that will help a person become stronger and more confident and more discerning in the Lord. We need to make sure that what we have said will do good for those that we come in contact with, so that they will listen to what we have to say. Proverbs 27 compares the counsel coming from a friend as being sweet and delightful. He says it's ointment and perfume, and it delights the heart. And the sweetness of a man's friend gives delight by hearty counsel. Well, the other thing is wisdom. Now, for the worshiper, communication to those in partnership must be guided by the wisdom of God. The proverb says that the tongue of the wise promotes health. In the final analysis, when establishing a consistent method of communication and as one pursuing the way of worship, discipline yourself to listen carefully, reflect on other people's opinion, practice honesty, practice confidence, not arrogance, and remember that the admonition from James 3:17 through 18 is that the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. At the end of the day, the responsibility we have is to guard our communication with all diligence.